everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me here today to speak to you about what I do for a living, my career path, entrepreneurship, innovation. This is my website, Lyric Investment Group, and I am a lawyer, I'm a real estate investor, and lots more things we're going to learn about today. So we are going to be talking about my favorite topic today, which is money. In order for me to explain money and how you can earn it, we are going to need to talk about how it is structured to earn money in this country. So first, let me start by introducing myself. I'm Naiya Mehta. I am what I call a multi-hyphenate. I wear a lot of different hats. I'm a lawyer. I'm a real estate investor. I'm a fund manager. I'm a consultant. I am an author. And I practice a philosophy called FIRE. FIRE is being financially independent and retired early. And finally, my most precious hat that I wear is I'm a mom. So we are going to be learning about a concept called the wealth ladder. But in order to really understand the vertical of a wealth ladder, we really need to hone in on this more popular concept called the corporate ladder. What is the corporate ladder? I'm sure it's a term that you have heard before. The corporate ladder is a linear climb. You start somewhere at entry level, and over the years, you work your way up to a senior, maybe an owner of that company. It's a slow and steady progression. 70% of Americans who are in the workforce are part of something called the corporate ladder. So I found this picture on the internet and I absolutely loved it. I like to think of this woman as, let's call her a power attorney. She just dropped her kids to school. Perhaps she started on that bottom rung as a legal assistant. Maybe in college she took a job and then she went and became a paralegal. And then over time, she climbed a couple more rungs. Maybe she went to law school. She became a lawyer. After being a junior associate, maybe she became a senior attorney. She started managing teams. And over time, when I think of this woman, I think of someone who is just owning the company. She is a senior equity partner at this law firm. When you drive up to the building, her name is outside on the marquee. This woman has lived her entire life dedicated to her career, and she has slow and steady climbed that corporate ladder. And with it, with the increase in her experience came an increase in responsibility, came an increase in her paycheck. And I remember learning about the corporate ladder when I was younger, and I could not wrap my head around it. It just wasn't me. I did not love any industry enough to dedicate 40 years of my life to it. But when I was this age, I remember my mom would wake up super early. She would leave for work. She started work at 6:30 in the morning, and she wouldn't come home until 6. So here I am, and as I grew, I remember 12-year-old me thinking, all I want is my mom to be home so that I can spend some time with her, have dinner with her. And unfortunately, throughout my childhood, that just didn't happen. So the idea of working for 40 years and just hitting this grind didn't sit well with me. And what I wanted to do was take this concept of working for 40 years and retiring for 15. I wanted to flip it on its head. I said, what if we worked for 15 years and then we just enjoyed retirement for 40? Spoiler alert, I did just that. And that's where FIRE comes in. Financially independent, retired early. From 25 to 40, I wore so many different hats. I did so many different things. And I made all of the money that my family and I need to live on for the rest of our lives in just those short 15 years. So how did I do it? Well, I want to actually go back to one of the things that really inspired me in my childhood. They say that the best way for you to grow is to seek out a mentor or maybe a role model. I went to the library and I looked for it in books. I was a total nerd in the back of the library, flipping through every biography I can get my hands on. One such biography I picked up was the biography of Oprah Winfrey. This woman was born in rural Mississippi. She had a really rough life. She came from a single mother. She had all sorts of things happening to her in her teen years. I implore you to possibly read her biography. And when she got to high school, she's like, I want something more for myself. Just because I came from poverty doesn't mean that's where I'm headed. And it really spoke to me. Just because I was poor when I was little doesn't mean that's my life trajectory. She became a radio DJ in high school. And then she's like, wait, I actually like to be in front of the camera. Then she became a news anchor. And she's like, hold on, I love interacting with people. Then she became a talk show host. Then she started a book club and a magazine. And Oprah Winfrey soon became the first female Black billionaire in our country's history. She was my inspiration. And I was like, if Oprah can do it, I'm going to do it. So how did I do it? There is something called the Post-it effect. Harvard University actually did a study about this. They said you are almost 50% more likely to achieve your goal if you do this one thing, and that is write it down. My Post-its were all over my tiny little bedroom that I shared with my brother. Make $1 million by the time I turn 30. Become a lawyer. Do this, do that. It was all over the place. Start my own business. Buy my parents a house. I wanted it all. And you know what? Those Post-its really helped because I had a goal in mind. I was singularly focused. So what I started to do is I started to create multiple vertical industries. This is more of a vertical climb in several different industries. The first one is I was a lawyer. I went to law school. I became an attorney. I actually worked as a United States federal attorney. I worked in a bureau called the Bureau of ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and I worked in the explosives and arson department. So I did some cool stuff, but it was not paying me those millions of dollars that I wanted, right? It was just fulfilling my passion for being a lawyer, and it was fulfilling my talent of being a very good negotiator. So what did I do? I did what all the books told me people were doing. Invest your money. Quietly, on the side, I bought, at the age of 25, my first apartment building. I got a loan, put down some down payment, bought my building, cleaned it up, sold it, did it again, and I was growing my real estate portfolio like this. Over time, I became a fund manager. A fund is when multiple people come together and give you their money, and you pool it all together, and you make something big with it. And over time, I started consulting on that. These are different verticals, and I was just like, who needs what? I'm going to fit into whatever mold the situation requires. I wrote a kid's book, and we talked a little bit about FIRE, being financially independent and retired early. There's many different ways to do it. Wealth looks different for everyone. There's so many different FIRE aspects, and no two families have the same goals. One of the things about starting your own company is you want to see what the need is in the world, but you also want to couple that with what your talents are. Don't reinvent the wheel. If you're not good at something, don't do it. Well, I came up with this example of Pinterest. Pinterest was created by 27-year-old Ben Silbermann. Ben Silbermann had all these tabs open on his computer. And he's like, man, these are all over the place. I wish there was a way for me to categorize them. And he had the brilliant idea at the age of 27 to create this thing where you can pin all of your tabs together. And that's how the idea of Pinterest was born. And in an interview, he said, the reason I came up with Pinterest is because as a kid, I used to categorize all of my stuff. He already had experienced this idea, this concept of pinning things together. He just did it digitally. And he made $1 billion by the time he turned 30. And now the company Pinterest is worth $12 billion. That sort of falls into this concept of tide that you all learn, right? Technology. How do I utilize the digital rock collection that I'm already doing at home? How do I enhance this? Innovation. How do I come up with an idea, something that's missing, something that we need in today's world? Design. You really have to just vision what you want to have happen. And that entrepreneurial nature is something that some of us are born with. So a few things that I picked up by reading about these very wealthy folks in these biographies that I was just absorbing. First of all, they were very conscious about where their money was going. Being a conscious consumer is so important. I'm not telling you to hold back on spending money, but I am telling you, ask yourself, do I really need this thing? And if you don't use that thing, rule number 2, start investing early. Let's say grandma gives you $200 for Christmas. You can maybe buy a pair of Reeboks for like $50 and then take that $150 and put it into an investment vehicle. You can go home right now and ask your parents, Mom, Dad, I really want to start investing. They can open a bank account for you, and by Monday, you could put money in there. Whether it's $10, $100, it doesn't matter. Over time, it'll grow. There's something called compound interest, that your money is making money on top of money. Think of a snowball. You just pack a tight little snowball at the top of a hill, and then you let it go. And by the time it runs to the bottom of that hill, it is giant. Let your money do the same thing in a high yield interest account. Hit it and quit it. Put in $100 Monday instead of spending it on something that you may or may not want or be in fashion tomorrow, that you might not even really love or remember. That's what I did. I started investing. First of all, I didn't have a lot of money. But whatever I did have, I was like, I'm going to put this away for a rainy day. I'm going to put this away and buy an apartment building. And I remember people thinking, you're not going to buy an apartment building with $10. And I was like, just you wait, because $10 becomes 20, becomes 1,000, becomes 1,000,000, could become 10 million by the time you're ready to enjoy it in your retirement. And the last thing I want to talk about that I kept seeing over and over again from these really wealthy folks was the concept of active income versus passive income. I kind of touched on that. Active income is stuff that you actively work for. I was a lawyer. I got up, I put on my suit, I went to court. I was working for every dollar I made. When I showed up at work, I was paid. And in order for me to get paid, I had to show up at work, right? It was a very active transactional thing. Passive income is totally different. That's just money you take and you put aside. You can put it in the stock market. You can put it in real estate like I did. You can put it into companies. You can give it to a fund, like the kind of fund that I ran. There are so many ways to make and grow your wealth that do not involve you to be there. I always say, active income is stuff you love to do. You have to have a reason to wake up in the morning and feel good about yourself. Passive income, you don't have to be there. You can be on vacation. You can be at work. You can be dead. It is still making money for you. So, in conclusion, I want to leave you guys with some tips. And these are things that you can actively do starting today. Practice wealth wellness. Do you see this guy, this dollar sign holding these weights? That's so important because we all talk about health and wellness and meditation and being athletic and mindfulness. Think of money as a type of wellness you also need to work at. Money is a language that you learn over time as you practice it more. You guys speak English, you might go home and speak Korean or Mandarin. We speak Gujarati in our house. Money and financial literacy is just that. It's a language. You have to practice it. You have to have the foundation and then the application to really understand it. If your parents don't speak the language of money, that's okay. You can go home and you can teach them. You guys could be the ones that go to the library, read the books, and go, you know, Mom, I think we should open a high-yield savings account. Oh, sweetheart, I don't know anything about money. That's all right. We're going to learn. We're going to learn this together. I'm going to teach you. Practice wealth wellness. Design your dream life is the next thing I want to leave you with. Write it down. As wacky as your ideas might be, put them on Post-its, stick them everywhere, and absorb that into your mindset. And finally, I know this is cheesy, but my mom used to say this to me all the time. I'm sure you guys have heard it. Reach for the stars. And at the very least, even if you don't hit outer space into the stars, you'll end up on the moon. That's still an amazing place to be. You don't have to be a product of your environment. You don't have to live the life that you're currently living. 12-year-old me didn't love what she was living, but I knew I didn't want to be poor. I want to do something greater. And here I am living the life that I always wanted at the beach, middle of the day with my kids. Thank you.